Good morning. Today we're going to look at Exodus 25 and 26. And in these two chapters, God gives Moses instructions for building the Ark of the Covenant and the table and the lampstand that will go in the tabernacle. And they didn't build a permanent tabernacle. The tabernacle was built out of expensive cloth and poles so that it could be set up and it could be moved. And it wasn't until, many years later that the temple in Jerusalem is built. Excuse me. So to begin in chapter 25, the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites to take an offering for me. All of the hearts, from all of those whose hearts prompt them to give you, this is what you shall receive. They can give gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and crimson yarns and fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins, fine leather, acacia wood, oil for the lamps, spices. So God has a definite list of things that, the people can give to Moses, for the building of the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant. And it reminds me of, sometimes, different churches would have what they would call a wish list or a hopes and dreams list of things for the church, things for worship that would be nice to have in the future. But, God has this list of these are the things that, that people can donate. And since it was a list of, including goat's hair and oil and, all of these things, it was from, the richest to the poorest. Any and everyone could afford to give something that was necessary. And that's a reminder to me also that, it isn't the size of the gift that's given. It's the intent with which it's given. I mean, when we make an offering to the church or to a charitable donation or whatever that way, it's, it isn't to brag about how much we give. And it isn't to even brag about that we give. It's that we give. And we don't, not to let anybody know. But anyway, God has this list of things, to make. And then verse 8 says, have them make me a sanctuary so that I may dwell among them. And so this is where we get, that God lives within our churches. I mean, God would be in this tabernacle, that he would live among them. And then he says, I will show you concerning the pattern of the tabernacle and all of its furniture so that you shall make it. Now, I don't know if the you shall make it means just Moses makes all this. I would highly doubt that, but maybe, But then he starts in verse 10, they shall make an ark of acacia wood. So this is the Ark of the Covenant. And he gives specific dimensions for it. It's going to be about, 45 inches long and 27 inches wide and 27 inches high. It made out of this acacia wood, which was a very durable wood and a wood that was available. But then they built this ark, and it was to be overlaid with pure gold inside and outside. And you shall make a molding of gold all the way around it, and to make the rings on it so that these poles, also made from acacia wood, would go through these rings. And these poles would be a permanent part of the covenant, so that as the Israelites moved, this ark could be carried with the poles on the shoulders of men and women, or however they needed to carry it, so that the Ark of the Covenant was easy to move along with the people as they moved. And then verse 17, you shall make a mercy seat of pure gold. And the mercy seat, as far as I haven't done a lot of research into that, but I would say that this is where the Ark of the Covenant is going to rest when it's in the tabernacle, when the tabernacle is set up. And, talks about the cherubim and pretty ornate instructions. And I mean, I can't even get so that I can picture it in my mind, but I know that, in different movies, I've, seen seen what people have designed from it, and it talks down in here about that, the branches or some of the cups on this lampstand will be like almond blossoms with calyx and petals on one branch. And so, I mean, I don't know what an almond blossom looks like exactly, but, God was specific in how this should be made. And we're going to go back up from that verse to, in verse 30, it says, "You shall set the bread of the presence on the table before me always." And the bread of the presence, in my Bible, the P is capitalized in presence, meaning that this is representing God, the bread of the presence. And the bread of the presence was a loaf of bread, 12 loaves of bread rather, signifying the 12 tribes of Israel. And this bread of the presence would be there, it would be replaced on a weekly basis. And in 1 Samuel chapter 21, there's a time when Samuel comes in, there is no bread other than the bread of the presence that is there. And Samuel and his men then, I believe, eat some of that bread of the presence, which was, not the way it should be, but it was a reminder that, that God is for humans, and that when we need that, it's there for us that way. And the bread of the presence, I think in some ways I think of it as like, the bread and the wine in Holy Communion as well. That, Martin Luther tells us that the body and blood of Jesus Christ is present in, with, under, and through the bread and the wine that we have. So this is the presence of Jesus is there in that bread and the wine. So this bread of the presence is God with the people. And this is the tabernacle where God is dwelling. Then he goes on in verse 31, he says, talks about the lampstand, and I mentioned that with the almond blossoms and how it shall be made, 3 branches on each side with 3 cups shaped like almonds, and everything, quite explicit is God with his instructions as to how they shall make these lamps and the lanterns and all of that. And then in verse 37, "You shall make the 7 lamps for it, and the lamps shall be set up to give light on the space in front of it. And snuffers and trays shall be of pure gold. It and all of the utensils shall be made from a talent of pure gold." And a talent of pure gold would weigh roughly 75 pounds. I mean, that's quite a bit of gold for all of these utensils, the snuffers, the trays, and all of that. But it's there, and these are God's instructions. And when I think about a talent of gold or a talent of silver, it always makes me think about Jesus as he uses the parable of, this man is going on a journey, and he gives these talents to these 3 people. And I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot, whether it's gold or silver. I mean, it's a tremendous amount that way. And I mean, 75 pounds of gold. I mean, it doesn't, gold is pretty heavy, and an ounce of gold isn't very big, but 75 pounds of gold would be a substantial amount. And then, the last thing that in this verse 25, "And see that you make them according to the pattern for them, which is being shown to you on the mountain." So God is showing Moses what he wants this to be. And then now he starts talking in chapter 26 about the tabernacle. "You shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twisted linen, blue, purple, and crimson yarns." And the purple would be the most expensive of the fabrics. The purple dye was the the most expensive, the rarest, the hardest to refine, the hardest to find that way. But so the temple was to be made out of ornate cloth for the most part, and make them with cherubim skillfully woven into them. The length of each curtain will be 28 cubits, and very specific in all of these. In verse 11, you shall make 50 clasps of bronze and put the clasps into the hoops to join them together, so that the curtains, of the tent, will be held up. So God's got this all planned out, and this tabernacle that they're going to put up, the wooden framework is roughly 45 feet long and 15 feet wide and 15 feet tall. So it's not a huge place, and it's not a place where all of the Jews could get in at one time, but it was where God would be in their midst. And it's just God is specific to Moses in this planning, and the Israelites make this tabernacle. They make this Ark of the Covenant, and I think it's at the time of David then that this Ark of the Covenant ends up in Jerusalem finally, and God is traveling with the people as they're moving through the area of their wanderings on the way to the promised